at a good time because it was back in the time when Colombia was dealing with the FARC and shutting it down, and Brazil was a good story, but people couldn't invest in it. So Colombia was sort of a Latin proxy.
Yeah. So my question is basically, is this limited to those kind of funds where it's kind of a greenfield approach where somebody has to go plant a flag, or is this really a competition for the existing established indices from S&P, MSCI, Russell, etc.?
Well, I'll start by saying that it's not limited to esoteric funds. They can provide a broad domestic market cap weighted index. But at the same time, are they competition for the larger providers? I think the larger index providers are worried about them from my conversation. Yeah. Will they ever be a contender? I'm not sure. I mean, it is a scalable business, and their pricing strategy reflects that, and having a flat fee per index. Every fund that is launched that is using selective is one less for MSCI, Russell, and S&P.
Yeah. So that's what I'm trying. Is it limited to kind of one less for S&P, MSCI, or is it like they can take away what they have got as well?
They could.
Okay. They could, but how? Yeah. Given the discussion we were having that
exactly.
On the retail side it might be a bit less, like on the retail side the assets may be sticky, but on the institutional investor side they're not.
Yes. So going back to what we were saying, it seems like
a BlackRock can get an ETF from can get an index from Solactive that they can brand as a BlackRock index or iShares index, and then sell an ETF on that, right?
They don't have the exemptive relief yet, but yes, they could. But then again, they could also go to S&P themselves and say, calculate this index for me based on my IP. So I think that's the way the larger providers might mitigate shops like Solactive, is provide their own white labeling if it ever gets to that.
Yes, the larger shops do some white labeling. What I'm trying to understand is, does it create a threat to their existing IP?
Does it create a threat to who? The index provider or the ETF provider?
The index provider.
Does it create a threat to the existing IP?
Okay.
It's a threat to the business. Yeah.
And then from the discussion that we had, is there any big differences in the fixed income market in sort of how the index, in the sense how the ETF and index provider relationship works?
Let's see. There are subtle dynamic differences, mainly streaming from the relationship between the PMs and the index providers. Because they have a different history, it's not equity, so the dialogue is not so much about name changes or stock splits, but more about yield and yield curves and distributions. But in terms of negotiations, in my experience, fixed income index providers have been much more flexible. And I think that's because historically the fixed income index providers have seen their business as more as just a side hobby, if you will, not so much of a proper business until recently.
Okay. So, but it would be like, I guess that was true for equity index business as well, sort of 25, 30 years ago.
Yes. Okay. That is true. Yeah, that's true. That's why Bloomberg bought the old Lehman, then turned Barclays indices, and why Market is launching a lot of fixed income indices.